It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Ronsley. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of Justin Buzzi, a remarkable entrepreneur whose journey from teenage musician to successful business owner is as inspiring as it is insightful. In this episode, we'll explore the intersections of art, business, and technology. We'll uncover how Justin's early forays into content creation laid the foundation for his current success, and how he's leveraging AI to revolutionize his business operations. So, buckle up and get ready for a fascinating conversation about the evolution of an entrepreneur in the digital age.
So this was really cool to prepare for, primarily because I kind of know you a little bit, and then doing some research, and then with the power of AI, it's like ridiculously easy to go in depth to find out your history, to compile that, to kind of go, oh, it's interesting. You know, Justin used to kind of do other stuff before. You've been creating content for a while. Let's talk about your content journey first and how much content you've created in your career.
It started when I was like 13 years old, honestly. You know, MySpace was a thing back then, and some older friends of mine were like making music, and they were like the cool kids in high school. And so I was like, I want to be like them, you know. They were good at soccer. They were making rap music, and like everyone was listening to it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so, yeah, I bought like a headset with a microphone on it and learned how to create music in like my closet in my house. I like didn't want my parents to know that I was doing it, you know, 13 years old, like rapping, and I don't want my parents to know. And so like, yeah, started out way back then and put a few songs on like MySpace. And I remember one of them had like 80,000 views back in the day. And I was like, oh my God, this is like crazy. And so I think that's like where it all started. And then years after that, I continued to make music, put stuff out when I could, content out, music out. There was a point where I had like one of my albums that I put out back in the day was on like iTunes Hot New Artist or something like that. Back when people used to buy music on iTunes. And it was all just because of putting out content. Like, I think that's the constant over my last 15, 20 years of life is just putting out a lot of stuff. And that's the only way people are going to know about what it is. And it just has grown a lot since then.
It's fair to say you've done enough reps to put content out, right? And here's what's really interesting, because you're obviously now sharing a lot of your success and your YouTube channel growth, and, you know, having 2 million views in the last month is crazy. And I want to get into that in a second. But what you mentioned here is kind of really interesting, because I'm the artist that had to learn to entrepreneur. And I feel like you're probably maybe in the same boat, but I would love to know your early brushes with entrepreneurship as an artist. Like coming from an artist perspective and just wanting to create your art. How did you land up tangling business and entrepreneurship into that?
It's funny because like I looked at music very much as like, okay, this is going to be a business, a career. Like, how do I structure this around knowing that like I wanted it to turn into what was going to pay my bills? And I never really made it to that point. I think the most I made in a month was like $2,500 or something like that. But I structured it that way. Like I went into it, not when I was 13, but when I was like, you know, 18 to 20, I was like, okay, now I'm going to put my foot on the gas a little bit. And now I'm going to try marketing a little bit. Like I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to go meet people. I'm going to hand out CDs after concerts when everyone's coming out of the venue. Like I'm going to give it a run at it. And so it's interesting because like, as a creative, you don't want to do that stuff typically. Like you want to just sit in your room and like create. But for whatever reason, like I've always just had a knack for networking, meeting other people, hanging out in different situations and fitting in a lot of different situations. And I think that has translated really well into the business world, is that like I now kind of know how to navigate conversations a little differently. And so like, yeah, it's turned into this really cool thing that like I've learned a lot of skills from that creative time in my life that I can now apply in more businessy time of life.
Isn't it fascinating how our entrepreneurial journeys often begin long before we even realize it? Justin's story reminds us that the seeds of business acumen can be planted in the most unexpected places, like a teenager's closet with a microphone and a dream. What strikes me the most about Justin's early experiences is how naturally he transitioned from pure creativity to a business mindset. It's a journey many artists struggle with, but Justin seemed to embrace it wholeheartedly. This ability to blend creative passion with business savvy is a hallmark of every successful entrepreneur in the digital age. So as we move forward in our conversation, we'll see how these early experiences shaped Justin's approach to his current ventures. But first, let's dive into how he's juggling multiple projects and leveraging modern tools to build his brand.
You mentioned how hard it is for an artist to typically do those things. Was it hard for you? And is there anything you did to overcome it? I feel like perspective is everything. Like people kind of feel like they should be doing things to get improved, but a shift in perspective can change. Like time is irrelevant in those instances. Do you have anything? Maybe you don't, but is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think the perspective on it that it gave me was like, let me try a lot of different things and see what I like doing, what I don't like doing, and what I could see myself doing long term. And for whatever reason, the marketing side of things like just always came relatively natural to me. And so I think like I've just always gravitated towards marketing. And even today, like, yes, I run a larger kayak tour business, but like I feel like I run a marketing agency that just happens to do kayak.
What is kayaking? Kayaking is a thrilling water sport that offers both adventure and tranquility to outdoor enthusiasts. Whether you seek the rush of navigating turbulent white water or prefer the serenity of gliding across calm lakes, kayaking has something for everyone. Immerse yourself in the world of kayaking, and you'll discover a treasure trove of health benefits waiting to be unlocked. As you glide across the water's surface, you embark on a journey towards improved fitness and well-being.
You know, and that's kind of how I felt when I was making music. I felt like, okay, I'm this marketing guy that just happens to make music.
So that's a really interesting perspective, because normally we would think we're the artist person that needs to do marketing, as opposed to the marketing person that needs to create a podcast or put podcast services or AI services out there. It's really super interesting. And I'm glad I asked that question, because another thing you mentioned in this whole equation is talking to people and partnerships. And I feel maybe that's another strength of yours. If you were creating something new and you wanted to get attention to it, whether it's a new book, a new podcast, a new creation, a new art, a new product, whatever it might be, a new business, how would you go about creating marketing? Like, how would you go about from that perspective?
Yeah, I think the perspective of like being able to fit in a lot of different scenarios and kind of like having in-depth in different conversations with a lot of different people has been huge. And like, for me, that means that I can go to, you know, I have friends that are in like one of the largest, like kind of heavy metal bands in the world. And like, I can go to a heavy metal show and like talk to anyone and have a meaningful conversation. The same way I can go to a rap show and talk to anyone and have a meaningful conversation. The same way I can go to a business event, a convention, and do that. And so that translates directly to the marketing stuff. Like, you need to understand the conversation you're having with the people you're having that conversation with. And if you don't understand that, you're going to miss the mark on a lot of things, and you're going to be talking to the wrong people or saying the wrong things or showing up in a way that you're not intending to show up. And so I think if I started out a new business today, like, You just have to work that equation backwards and understand who you want to talk to and how you want to have that conversation with those people.
By running multiple podcasts, each with a unique angle, he's not just creating content, he's building a multifaceted platform for connection and growth. What's particularly striking about how Justin views his role is he doesn't see himself as just a kayak tour operator who does marketing on the side. Instead, he views himself primarily as a marketer who happens to run a kayak business. This shift in perspective is crucial. It allows him to approach his business with a marketer's eye, always looking for new ways to engage, to connect, and to grow. Justin's experience at VaynerMedia and his interactions with Gary Vaynerchuk highlight an important truth in entrepreneurship. Sometimes the most valuable experiences come from simply being in the right room. About exposure to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and the realization that success at the highest levels is all achievable. So as we continue our conversation, we'll explore how Justin is incorporating cutting-edge technology into his business operations. His approach to AI.
Obviously, with a business, you've got all these other things that are happening: recruitment, delivery, customer satisfaction, marketing, and you've added this content piece of building a buzz and podcast to it. It must have been taken a lot of your energy and effort away, like another spinning plate. What made you do that? What made you make that jump?
Yeah. And to add even more context, like I have building a buzz, and then I have Get Up and Scale, and then I have Let's Yak. So there's literally 3 different podcasts that I'm spinning plates doing. And each of them serve a little bit of a different purpose, but like they all come back to, how do I create extra content? How do I connect with people that maybe wouldn't connect with me just over a cold email, but they would over a podcast? How do I leverage the years and years of relationship building to now hopefully build a platform of a podcast that allow me to open my network even more? And back to that 13-year-old me of like putting myself out there and trying to meet people and network, like that's just still what that is to me, is like, I have this opportunity now to interview people that would have probably never spent the time of day to talk, with me and from a cold email, but they do because it's a podcast. And not only that, but like the inherent nature of like how pretty kayaking is. You probably remember at the 4Ds that we did last year, Gary was like, you need to do a podcast in a kayak. And so that's what Let's Yak is. I go out with someone in a kayak, set up a few GoPros and have the mic set up, and we just have a podcast while we're kayaking, and it shows off the business, shows off my love for nature and adventure, and then it shows off the guest. And so they each kind of like serve a little bit of a different purpose and have a little bit of a different audience intention, but the overarching theme is, I think, like the networking side of it, and the content piece for me is like, I really want to ramp up what I'm doing on the personal branding side of all of this. And I think as like a franchisor, it's really important that people connect with the founder, the CEO of this business in order to become a franchisee. And so if I can do that in a way that makes sense, like I think podcasting is a no-brainer.
And to your point, I mean, you're doing so many different shows. What's your process to set it up? Like, how do you, well, more importantly, from a business strategy perspective, because you did mention that you're a marketer that happens to do all these things. So you've got these 3 businesses, and it almost feels like, wait a minute, you got this one role, which is marketing, and you happen to have all these other things that just happen to need marketing, which is, the way Gary thinks about it. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we met at VaynerMedia in New York. So our meeting was kind of special, and in a boardroom at VaynerMedia. It's kind of cool to be in a boardroom like that. What did you feel, man? Like, how did you like this whole interaction and getting to a point? Because I only really realized this recently, that a lot of people would want that access, but don't get that access. And here we are just, fooling around.
Justin's insights into content creation and podcasting are gold for any aspiring entrepreneur or even seasoned one. His emphasis on persistence and experimentation is crucial. In the world of content, it's not about getting it right the first time. It's about constantly, consistently putting yourself out there and learning from each attempt. What's particularly interesting is Justin's approach to structuring his content creation process. While he acknowledges the benefits of a regular schedule, he also recognizes his own tendency towards spontaneity. This honest approach about his work style is refreshing and reminds us that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to entrepreneurship. The discussion about AI's impact on content creation is especially timely. As Justin and I both note, AI has dramatically reduced the time and effort required for many aspects of content production. This democratization of tools means that creators can focus more on strategy and creativity rather than getting bogged down with the technical details. So as we wrap up this conversation, let's explore how Justin's unique perspective has shaped his approach to marketing and business growth.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was thinking about this earlier, actually, is like, I'm at the point in my life where betting on myself is so important, I think. And I think it's going to help steer the direction of where I want everything to go. And I have always looked up to Gary, like over the last 6, 7, 8 years of like, man, that guy has a vision, is going for it, and is actually doing it. And so I think being in a room with a person like that, is to say it's motivating is like an understatement. It makes you realize how people work on the level that he works on. It makes you see in live time, like how big of a business he's grown and how he is actually sitting in his corner office doing it every day. He's not just like closed off from the world, like he's living it and doing it. And yeah, the opportunities I think that have just come from that first time to now doing the Vive thing, like I don't even think my head can really wrap around the potential that this has created. And the conversations that have already happened to me are just so valuable and like worth the price that we paid for it.
And on top of that is the travel, and there's so much other, when you talk about price, it's not money. It's a different type of price that each one of us pay. And here's what's really interesting, Justin. Like I have squeezed the last 40 years of my life. Like literally, I've done things that are ridiculous. Like when I look back at it, I don't think of it at the time, or I have not thought of it for a long time. And I feel that's what made me just do the next thing. I think entrepreneurship is a lot more easier now than it was when I first started, obviously, because I was still learning. And I don't think you can run away from that learning curve of entrepreneurship or the AI. That's all possible. How are you using it? Are you using it at all? I mean, a kayak, I don't know how AI fits into that.
I actually use it more than probably, I would say most people. You probably use it more than me, but I think like in my day-to-day conversations, I'm like, oh, you don't use AI for that, and like, why not? And I think a big one is just something as simple as like a note taker during meetings, right? I used to have to like have one screen up with my notes and I'm like typing, as the other screen I'm like talking. And now I can just focus on the conversation, let that thing take my notes, give me a summary and a to-do list and so on and so forth afterwards. That alone has saved me so much time. But like I've created, custom GPTs for our admins, and actually after the 4Ds thing, like I threw in the entire presentation and like tried to create cohorts around, different customer segments and like made a custom GPT for that. And I try to figure out ways that will help not just me, but like all of the franchisees. So if there's ways that they can go and interact with it to answer questions rather than having to come to me, I've tried like so many different things. But I think at the end of the day, like the thing that it saves me the most time with is meetings, and then coming up with ideas, I think is a really important thing that I've used it for. Sometimes you don't have anyone else to talk to. You open it up and you ask it a couple of questions and you've got your answer quicker than you would have got to that answer in the past. Right. And so like that's probably the main use cases that I use it for.
That's interesting. You say custom GPTs because like a week ago, I had this meeting with, and you must have seen the post because I made a reel about it. I had this meeting about custom GPTs, and this guy was about to spend, I don't know, 100 grand for this guy to put all his IP into a custom GPT. And I was like, dude, how is how is it going to safeguard your IP? And he goes, oh, don't worry. Like, the instructions will not give up. I was like, hold my coffee, dude. And I got the instructions, not only the instructions, I got the instructions of his instructions not to give me the instructions. And it's so hilarious about what is competency these days around AI. But I love the fact that is very evident is that it's intelligence, and everyone feels more intelligent as a result of using it. Of course, they're going to feel more competent. It's a natural, I think, a response to using intelligence. So it's a good thing that I suppose people are feeling competent. The problem is that with marketing, the marketers are doing a good job to tell other people how competent they really are. So it's really interesting. I asked you the question about how this is going to affect kayaking. Yesterday, I got asked to be on this company that is using heart rate variability and AI to increase our vibration so that we vibrate at a higher frequency. And I'm like, wait, what are you doing? That blew me away. I was like, I'm in. Like, where do I sign? How do I get part of? So how is the kayaking business changing as a result? Is it changing at all? Do you see anything? Like, do you see, business changing in any way?
On that level is a little bit, I think, further down the road for us. But I think on the level of like the customer's journey and the customer's experience of like booking with the kayak company and their interactions with the kayak company, like that's where short-term change is definitely happening. So I think it's like, for me, like Google has AI answering questions now, right? And so like, how does my business show up as that AI answer when someone says, what is the best kayak tour in Florida? And so that's a big one that I think about a lot. But I think like just in general, the customer's journey is going to get more efficient. It's going to get easier. People are going to find what they want to do faster. And I'm here to try and facilitate that on my end of things as much as I can. So whether that means putting out more content, whether that means refining our booking flow, whether that means creating chat bots that can answer questions quicker than a human can. Like, I think just the customer experience of the entire process, the entire customer journey is where a lot of changes are going to happen. The on the water experience, I kind of feel like that's where you don't need the AI to adjust much. I do think like we've thrown some of our talking points and ideas into it, and it has refined those over time. And like, I don't even think the customer realizes that's happened. And I don't necessarily want them to, when they're doing this in-person experience with other human beings. Like, I don't know how much AI I want to introduce to that. But I think like the back end and the efficiencies and the bookings and whatever, that's where I want to dig in a little bit and see where I can make things easier for everyone.
That's exactly what I want people to think about when they think about AI. It's the augmentation of human intelligence with artificial intelligence. What is the plan for the future? So if you look now, you're in a accelerator and you're obviously thinking about the future, and there's a reason probably you join. What does success look like, man? If 5 years from now and we were celebrating in New York, one of the like fancy restaurants, what would we be celebrating?
I feel like that's kind of the fork in the road of where I'm at now. Is I can really throw a lot of gas onto the fire right now and try to grow from 32 locations to 150, right, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I've been growing at like 5 or 6 a year, and it's been a healthy growth at 5 or 6. Like, it's something I can handle. It's not overwhelming. I would love to have a really good answer for that, but I want to grow fast. The entrepreneur in me like wants to grow big and fast and whatever. But I also like know that would change so much of how I live my current life. That do I really want to do that? I don't know. That's the tough part I'm at. I think for me, like the business has already grown more than I had ever expected it to grow. I didn't come into it thinking, okay, I'm going to franchise and grow to 30 locations. I came into it thinking I was going to be a kayak tour guide the rest of my life, and that'd be fine with me. That sounded cool. And so, like, I think I could celebrate every day for what I've already done, which is the really cool feeling. So in 5 years, like, yeah, if there's more to that, amazing. But like, I'm more concerned about like, how many more people's lives can I help with, like helping them create their own business, whether that's through a franchisee or through their own business? How many more people can I show an amazing experience to through our kayaking? I've had people that have gotten married because they met on our kayak tours, and two strangers that were both from Ireland that found out they both lived 5 minutes away from each other back home, and they became best friends afterwards and sent me photos of them at a pub like 5 months later. Like, how many more of those stories can I have? Those are the things that I want to celebrate. You know, how many more team members can we help put in a better position? Like, our staff loves being kayak tour guides for a living, and they make a good living doing it. And those are the things that I want more of. It doesn't matter to me if the business really grows to this crazy international franchise or whatever. I just hope to give back to more people and do meaningful things for more people.
That's such a shift, right? Because I feel like we get caught up in other people's definitions of success and then kind of get dragged around. I mean, you know, at one point, all I wanted was a company as big as Gary's. And that's not what I want anymore, for sure. I feel like I can make a difference in a different way, and I can't pick someone else's way to do that. And
we try to validate our success based on other people's situation, you know, and that's not fair to ourselves.
So what kind of, like, when you look back at your entrepreneur career, like, what kind of messages or pieces of advice that you got along the way that you're like, oh, that made a huge difference, that changed my perspective, it helped me breathe better and deal with the situation differently?
I tell this to my franchisees a lot, is like, for me, at the end of the day, it's just kayaking. Like, it's not crazy thing, right? We're not like putting out actual fires. We're not doing anything crazy. We're showing people fun experiences in the form of kayaking. It's just kayaking, you know, at the end of the day. So I think like that perspective has helped quite a bit. I think one of the other things that I've thought a lot about too is, at the beginning of being an entrepreneur, it was like, I'm betting on the business working. Like, I think this business is going to work because X, Y, and Z. And I set the business up to do this and this. And now it's kind of changed to like, the business is going to work because I'm part of the business and because I'm who I am. And I've invested the time, effort, and money into myself so that the business can continue to grow. And at the end of the day, like, I know if kayaking disappeared tomorrow, like, because of who I am and what I've learned and what I've been through, I could go and create something else that I think would be meaningful. So I think like a little bit of the perspective change from like betting on the business to betting on yourself. And I've learned that in the 8 years of being an entrepreneur.
Dude, I think all that helped. All that was training, all that was reps, and all that made you the entrepreneur you are today. And not only the entrepreneur you are today, and the reason I really like and hang out with you, obviously, is the person you are today and the man you are today. So Justin's perspective on marketing and business growth is truly unique. His ability to see himself as a marketer first, regardless of the specific industry he's in, allows him to approach business problems with a fresh eye. This mindset of, I'm a marketing guy who happens to do X, is a powerful way to stay focused on growth and connection, no matter what field you're in. His emphasis on understanding and relating to different types of people is a crucial skill in today's diverse business landscape. The ability to have meaningful conversations across various subcultures and industries isn't just a social skill. It's a powerful marketing tool. It allows Justin to tailor his message effectively to different audiences, ensuring that his marketing efforts always hit the mark. So, as we conclude our conversation with Justin, I'm struck by the breadth of his experience and the depth of his insights. From his early days as a teenage musician
to his current role as a successful entrepreneur and marketer. Justin's journey is a testament to the power of persistence, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace new technologies and perspectives. His story reminds us that entrepreneurship is not just about building a business, it's about building relationships, creating value, and constantly evolving our approach to meet the changing needs of our audience and the market. Thank you for joining me on this volume of the Psychology of Entrepreneurship. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and remember, your unique perspective is your greatest asset in the world of business.
Hey!